which is the advertised time and date for this meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. So I will now call the meeting to order. I would like to first of all introduce the staff. On my left is Lori Casey, Planning Director, who was here earlier as Dylan Pipinich, and I'm sure he will return. Here comes Dylan. He is Assistant Planning Director. I'm introducing people, Dylan, is all, just so they know who the handsome gentleman at the table is. Directly across from Dylan is Joella Thomas, Planning Technician, and next to Joella Thomas is Carol Laird, the Secretary who will be recording the minutes of the meeting. The staff, or the board, excuse me, that is present tonight on my far right is Todd Collins, Tyler Schaefer, Garrett Craig. On my left is Julie Jackshaw. My name is Dave Wing, and I will be chairing the meeting tonight. The first matter for our consideration are the minutes of the last meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to review those minutes?
Yes.
And would anybody care to make a motion regarding them?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I would second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the last meeting. All in favor indicate by voice vote saying aye.
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 The minutes are approved by voice vote. The only matter on our agenda tonight is special use application 21-7, a special use permit application by Gosden McDermott Cattle Company with regard to solar panels to be located on the property of Gosden-McDermott. Are representatives of the applicant present? Okay. We will now listen to the staff report.
Josh, would you bring up our PowerPoint, please? Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you have before you special use permit number 6. This is an application, as you stated, by Gosden McDermott Cattle Company, care of John McDermott, he is the owner, and Cushing Terrell Agents, and they're requesting to construct a photovoltaic PV power generation facility through the installation of approximately 700,000 solar panels. Also before you tonight is a variance request number 6, also, in addition. So the primary, I'm sorry, and 6 for the variance? Okay. It is number 7 for the special use and 6 for the variance. The special use is the primary application before you tonight. The variance request is a secondary application to some of the criteria that we will go before you. The reason you have a special use permit and a variance application is because there, as the board is aware, there is different criteria that you use for approving a special use permit and a variance application. It's important to note that the special use permit could be approved and the variance not approved, but to the extent that the special use permit would be denied, there would be a denial of the variance, because without the special use permit, there would be no need for the variance request. With that, we, as I stated, it is a solar facility. They're planning on putting in approximately 700,000 solar panels on approximately 1,630 acres of property. This facility is, go ahead, Josh. The facility will be estimated to have a generation capacity of 300 megawatts. This would provide enough power to meet the needs of over 40,000 single-family homes. If this were to be approved, it would be one of the 10 largest solar facilities in the United States. Primarily, the power would be used for Atlas Power, which is a data center within our South Industrial Park. Any excess energy would be on the grid and would be sold. The construction timeframe of this proposed project would be to begin in August of this year and take a little over a year, ending in November of 2022. This is an aerial photograph of the 1,600 and plus acres outlined in pink. Just to orientate you, just up on the north kind of east side is the South Industrial Park and Basin Creek Power Plant. Coming along the eastern edge from north to east is Basin Creek Road. And then on the west end, you know, from north to south, would be Little Basin Creek. As you can see, it is a large area that has been primarily utilized for the Gosden-McDermott Ranch as open land or grazing land. Go ahead, Josh. The intent, as the board is aware of, the special use permit is to allow other type uses if they are found to be able to be fit in with the neighboring properties for the zone, and there's no possible adverse, and doesn't affect the permitted use, or if those impacts could be mitigated. The special use permit process provides for a review of public input, a measure of the potential impact of the proposed use on the surrounding area, and the compatibility of the proposed use with the adjoining neighborhood. The board's decision to issue a special use permit must be based on findings that the Basin Creek Solar Project will not be unduly detrimental to other properties and/or contrary to the spirit and intent of the zoning ordinance. It's the responsibility of the applicants to present evidence to the satisfaction of this board that undue detriment will not result from granting the permit. Go ahead, Josh. A special use permit, we analyze 20 review criteria. The applicants have provided an extensive application. What's in your packet that address that criteria. The board will summarize some of that as we go through. Go ahead, Josh. One of the criteria we look at is the location, character, and natural features of the property. As we stated, this is all vacant land that was used as part of the ranch. Just up there on this photo, we tried to do a Google Earth photo to try and show you the topography of the site itself. Just up, go back one for a minute, Josh. Just up in that kind of would be the north. This picture's kind of backwards, but up in the corner is the South Industrial Park. Kind of the green strip that you see coming through the center of the property is Little Basin Creek. Little Basin Creek is a FEMA designated floodplain. Go ahead, Josh. This is just another view that's up close of the South Industrial Park and the Basin Creek power plant in relationship to the facility. So when we look at this and the rest of the character, we've addressed the industrial within this area, but surrounding the properties are what we refer to as rural residential. Most of these properties have a single-family residence on them. They have outbuildings that are typical of living in a rural environment. Although the zoning district does allow this to go down to a minimum of 1 acre, most of the sites that have a developed residence on them are about 20 acres or more. One of the other criteria, we did receive comments and character of this area of the proposed place is we received comments from Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. They reviewed the application. They noted that this project lies within elk winter range. They recommended that the project be consolidated to the extent possible and follow recommended setbacks from streams and wetlands. So that designated stream of FEMA, they recommend that there's a total of a 200 distance from the ordinary watermark of a perennial stream and a 100-foot setback from any delineated wetlands. Go ahead, Josh. So this is the FEMA regulated map. So the stream that goes east to west on this map is the Little Basin Creek, which does traverse the property. The blue stream that you see that kind of goes more in a north-south fashion is Basin Creek stream. This project does not impact the Basin Creek, but does impact the Little Basin Creek. Go ahead, Josh. As I stated, this project is in the R1S. That's kind of the light yellow that you see outlined on this map. The gray area that you see in the southern portion is unzoned property, meaning that any zoning regulations do not apply to this end. The kind of rustic color that you see is what we refer to the R4S, which is a manufactured zone suburban. The S stands for suburban area. The minimum acreage is 1 acre, but like I said previously, most of this area has been developed into a much lower density than the zoning ordinance allows. The purple area you see on this photograph is the M1 zoning district for the light industrial. And it basically encompasses the South Industrial Park, the Basin Creek Power Plant, and then proceeds north. Go ahead, Josh. Because of the lower density that this area has been developed as, we recently, on our comprehensive plan, adopted it as a place type of either working lands or rural residential. And we'll get into that a little bit later as we go through the criteria, but basically kind of the lighter or the mint green that you see is the rural residential, and the remainder of the green area that you, on this map, would be the working lands. The blue area is what we refer to as a place type as economic driver. The economic driver is where we want our facilities such as the M1 zone, or basically type of facilities that produce for jobs. And that's why it's called economic driver. Go ahead, Josh. Criteria C that we analyze have substantial changes occurred in the surrounding land uses since the original adoption of the zoning ordinance. Primarily, this area hasn't changed. The subject property itself has not changed at all as far as the zoning designation. What we have seen is we have seen more development in our South Industrial Park. We did Butte-Silver Bow in anticipation of making the South Industrial Park as well as proceeding north. We did in anticipation of making that a targeted economic development district, do a zone change. That changed a lot of the area you see north of the South Industrial Park between that and Highway 10. That area was residential, and that changed to light industrial to go along with the targeted economics. So that's the primary change has been north of where this project area is. Go ahead, Josh. Criteria D, we look at the proposed fencing, screening, and landscaping, and this is where the variance request will address that in the report. We'll switch here in a minute to their requested variances because it falls under criteria D. The applicant is proposing a woven fence with some type of flagging on the top. The fence would be 7 foot tall. This fence is supported by the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. They like that it's an exclusionary fence in which larger animals can't get in, but it can also be identified by the flags at the top. And again, that would be 7 foot tall. Go ahead, Josh. The following variances are requested from the applicants. A special use permit by the ordinance is required to meet all of the landscaping requirements of the zoning ordinance. So that means 100%. So they have asked for a variance from section 17.38444, the landscaping requirements of a commercial or residential zones. This is because they're requesting not to meet 100% of the requirements. Again, that is kind of how it is the variance of 1738-041, new site development. Again, a new site is required to meet 100% of the zoning ordinance. And then they're requesting a variance from 1738-037, the determination of landscaping area, 17.38-046, subsection A, landscaping buffers, and 1738-055, sprinkler system installation requirements. So as I stated, this is a secondary application. Basically, the special use permit is the primary. And we'll get into the variance requirements and go through the variance since we are on the landscaping section of the criteria, so we'll switch. As you know, the criteria that we look at is not whether the variance can fit in harmony like the special use permit, but that it must not be contrary to public interest. The literal enforcement of the zoning ordinance must result in an unnecessary hardship owing to conditions unique to the property. And the third criteria that they must meet is the spirit of the zoning ordinance must be observed and substantial justice done. Okay, we'll just go back and stay on that one for a minute, Josh, please. So the reason landscaping requirements were put in place was to help enhance the aesthetic value of commercial and industrial properties. And that's one of the reasons why special use permits are also required to do that, is because usually they're a little bit different use than is the permitted use of the zone they're going in. So the landscaping is to help with the aesthetic look of those type of properties. Generally, on these type of properties, the commercial or industrial are much smaller than the 1,630 acres that this site is proposed to be on. So really, when we look at it, a larger footprint usually requires more landscaping, and a smaller footprint of a building requires less landscaping. So in lieu of installing landscaping, they are proposing, and we do have a picture of it as we go through a little bit in the presentation, and it was in your package, is they're proposing to install 2 gateway signs announcing the project site and the creation of an educational point of interest with interpreted signage, and would have approximately 3/4 of a mile of a walking trail. As the look and feel of this area is intended to be more of a rural development, not installing some of the required landscaping and the 5-foot buffer around the entire perimeter of the property would probably not be considered that it would be not contrary to the public interest, because you're looking at wanting to maintain that kind of rural character of the area, and a 5-foot buffer that you're used to around typical commercial or industrial properties would not do much to negate the impact of this solar farm. In addition, in regard to the sprinkling system, in their area that would be the educational or component of this property, they're proposing to do low-maintenance, drought-resistant type plants, so they are not, they're requesting a variance from the sprinkler system, and that proposed area will be on the side of Basin Creek where we have public water in the area. The size, when we look at the hardship or whether there's a hardship owing for these variances, in this particular case, the size of the property is considerably larger, again, than most of the parcels that are required to do the residential landscaping. But we do have, we do take into consideration the largest, in our zoning requirements for the calculations for landscaping goes up for over 5 acres. Generally, you don't have a parcel much larger than that for the commercial or industrial. It's important to note that the hardship can't be associated to something that the applicants are creating. So to the extent that this application would be approved, the installation of the solar field could not constitute a hardship for any future development of the owner. And whether or not substantial justice is being done, because this is such a large facility, the topo of the land, it's very difficult to provide screening, and wanting to keep that rural aesthetic look without a whole line of trees around 8 miles of perimeter, it may, they may not be receiving special treatment. And so to the extent that this special use permit would be approved, staff does not believe, staff believes that the variances should be approved, but that is only, again, to the extent that you approve the special use permit, that they have provided some mitigation measures with the interpretive area and the trail system in lieu of landscaping. In addition, the applicants have stated within their application that they are willing to work with private landowners that are adjacent or abutting to the site. This would be on an individual basis on what those landowners would want and whether it's reasonable. It's important to know that that would be just a private agreement, because there would be no way that staff could make a condition, as each property would be unique in how the screening would take place, unique in what they would want. So any type of agreement, to the extent this would be approved, that would have to be a private agreement between the applicants and the individual property owners. Go ahead, Josh. So criteria is the proposed vegetation, topography, and natural drainage. Again, it's within the Little Basin Creek FEMA regulated floodplain, so the applicants would be responsible for meeting all required permitting in relation to that, to the extent that the development was approved. In addition, this shows, this here shows what their intent. The solar panels would be approximately 20 feet from the fence, which would be on the inside of their property line. That meets the requirements of the S zones to be 25 feet from the property line. Go ahead, Josh. Criteria G is pedestrian circulation. Again, the applicants have proposed an interpretive area. This shows that interpretive area that we were talking about in the variance. You can see up here on the map that they have, it shows where the gateway signage is. Then kind of a little bit in the center where you see that 2-car pull-off would be where the interpretive area and the walking trail would be. So they are addressing the pedestrian circulation with that. The rest of the area would be fenced off. from the public being in, this would just tell you about solar energy and different things. However, that being said, part of the landscaping requirements of section 17.38036 requires the installation of sidewalk, curb, and gutter along Basin Creek area. It would be to the extent that the zoning district covers. They would be required to install sidewalk, curb, and gutter along that portion of Basin Creek. On the Little Basin Creek side, this property does not touch any public right-of-ways. Those roads that are in that area are all private where the boundaries of this property are, so they would not be required on that side, only on the Basin Creek side. And I would just like to go back a little bit and back up to the fencing. One of the applicants have provided a corridor that would be open along that basin, or the Little Basin Creek Road, or I'm sorry, floodplain, for wildlife to traverse. They also have said that they would fence in zones to allow a little bit more movement through there. You may want to have the applicant address that a little bit more to identify where those zones would be on their site plan as we go through. Go ahead, Josh. Criteria I, we look at potential nuisances. So this is just, again, an overview of the area. One of the potential nuisances when a commercial or industrial facility can be noise. The applicants have stated in their application that the solar facilities will make a humming noise when the sun is out and they're producing or generating electricity. They say that this noise will register approximately 67 decibels. For reference, conversation is usually 60 decibels, and the running of a dishwasher generally runs around 70 decibels in area. So this humming noise would be produced during daylight hours when the sun's out, not in the evening time. Go ahead, Josh. Another potential nuisance can be the visual impact. Within your packet, and there was also a link to the 3D modeling that the applicants proposed. We did put some of the renderings of their 3D modeling. They tried to show what kind of visual impact you see. This is their southeast view from Timber Butte, and I think if you have any clarification that you need on these and their renderings, I think reserve your questions for the applicant on that, but we just wanted to show, this is the southeast view from their 3D modeling. Go ahead, Josh. Southwest view, again, more of the black in the center would be the solar panel area. And this is the north view that they provided. The location and size of this property can have an impact on the wildlife. As stated by Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, it is an elk winter range. The other type of animal or that it can have is birds. Fish, Wildlife, and Parks have stated that sometimes these panels can mimic water bodies and attract insects and birds. So the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks biologists stated within their letter that they are available to provide input on the design of the solar panels to help reduce the impacts of that once the site studies have been completed on the newer solar panel technology. Should be noted that applicants are proposing to provide a non-reflective type surface on their solar panels. And that goes to the glare that can be produced from this facility. So we did hear from the Burt Mooney Airport, and they have requested that the FAA has requested a solar glare study be conducted, and they also submit a Form 7460. This would be enable for the FAA to review and determine if there would be any impact on air traffic in the area. We received today an email from Pam Chamberlain of the Butte-Silver Airport that stated that they have submitted that information to the FAA, but they have not fully reviewed that. Another potential nuisance can be while they are constructing this project. So this aerial photo shows you that where they are proposing to have their staging areas. There would be a primary staging area that would be on the northeast area of this site plan, closer to the Basin Creek power plant. There would be a second staging area off of Basin Creek down on the southeast area of the applicants have stated all traffic will be coming in off of Basin Creek. Although there may be the potential of the solar panels and the equipment to come in by train, they anticipate most of this equipment would be coming in on truck. The hours of construction are expected to be 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. on Monday through Saturday. The perimeter adjacent to the residence, that construction would be limited to foundations, racking, panel installation, and the exterior fencing. The heavier trafficked areas will be to the main staging area. All construction roads and those type of traffic areas would be watered to help reduce dust in the area. Go ahead, Josh. Criteria J is public health and safety. In order to help with mitigating any potential fire or grass fires, the applicants are proposing to mow the site once or twice a year to help create a vegetative buffer to reduce that potential of fire spreading. They're also proposing to complete an emergency response plan with local officials, and they would include a copy of the project summary, an electrical schematic, and site plan within that plan. If you could just go back, Josh, just as I stated earlier, there is public water facilities along the Basin Creek Road, as we do. Butte-Silver does have a water main on that side. However, when you get to more of the western side that is off of Little Basin Creek, there is no public water within that area. The applicants have stated as far as signage goes, they would make sure that they meet the National Electrical Code. The signage would talk about, you know, that no access to the site and different things like that. They will also utilize wireless security cameras at each of the gate entrances to monitor whether anyone gets into the site. We already talked about the potential impact to the FAA, and they have started that process of submitting those documents. Another concern when we talk about health and safety can be the disposal of solar panels and the decommissioning of the plant, decommissioning plan for the site. This solar panels are estimated to have between a 20 and 30-year life, and so at some time they will become obsolete and need to be disposed of. The preferred method would be recycling, but further research would be needed to be done on Butte-Silver's landfill site and whether or not they could accept any panels. This would have to be done even as if any panels get broke during time or during construction time. There would have to be some clarity of whether or not our landfill, as a registered landfill, could accept those. In regards to talking about a decommissioning plan, Montana Code Annotated 7526-301 requires owners of solar facilities that are greater than 2 megawatts to submit a decommissioning plan and bond to the DEQ. This size of the project, estimated at 300 megawatts, would classify for having to do a decommissioning plan. that decommissioning plan would have to be submitted to DEQ 12 months after they start operation. Go ahead, Josh. Criteria L is situations which present the utilization of the property for the full range of uses allowed in the district. This just shows it's just another view and different view of the zoning designations of the subject property. The subject property, again, is R1S, single-family suburban zone. This zone allows single-family residents, what we refer to as Class A and B manufactured homes, modulars, farming, keeping of livestock, fowl, rabbits, and or bees with certain restrictions, and Class 1 and Class 3 kennels with certain restrictions. The R4S zone, again, that is the kind of rust color on your map, that allows the same permitted uses as the R1 zone. They do make a provision for mobile homes. And again, there is a portion of this project area that lies within the not zoned area, so within that area, there is no zoning requirements. Go ahead, Josh. Criteria N is in regard to whether this proposed use conforms to the objectives of the adopted comprehensive plan and the purpose of the zoning ordinance. As the board is aware, we recently adopted a comprehensive plan, and as I stated earlier, the project area is a place type of working lands and rural residential, with the blue being, that's the industrial park, the economic driver. So within our comprehensive plan, we have some detailed characteristics of what those place types would be. And so the uses for working land place type are land uses typical of large-scale agricultural or silvicultural operations, land cultivation, ranching, and limited resource extraction. Large tracts of land are representative of this place type, as you can see, and we talked about the low density that this area has been developed as. Development standards are limited for working class lands with large setbacks and keeping the characteristic of that rural agrarian landscape. Clustering should be encouraged in the limited instances where large lot estate residential development may be considered when served by appropriate infrastructure. Protection of view sheds and preservation of the traditional Western characteristics, especially those prominent in the city and county of Butte-Silver, are especially important to this place type. The characteristics and the description of a rural residential place types are characterized by large acreage residential tracts of land exhibiting a variety development pattern typical of estate residential subdivisions. Smaller parcel sizes may be found closer to the urban areas, but still exhibit an irregular development pattern and are typically served by limited infrastructure. While single-family residence is a predominant land use in these areas, small-scale commercial services, utilities, and agri-tours activities may be intermixed on a limited basis. Hobby farms and the raising of animals for personal use is also common. Rural residential development is typically served by well and septic and accessed by a local road network. The applicants have presented within their application information that their proposed solar array shares similarities to that of resource extraction activities and therefore aligns with the working lands place type. In regards to, we also, as the comprehensive plan is the guiding policy of what we want our future development to be. The zoning ordinance is the regulatory document, and the zoning ordinance does allow for special use permits, and the applicant's project does qualify for review under a special use provisions. Go ahead, Josh. Criteria O is whether the use will promote or not substantially impede the conservation of resources and energy and the conservation policy of Butte-Silver. Energy produced through the use of solar is considered to be a green energy source. The benefit of green energy is that they do not produce greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuels and reduce some types of air pollution. Solar helps to diversify our energy supply. The applicants have stated that this facility will be connected to existing utility infrastructure that's in and around the South Industrial Park, Northwestern Energy, Basin Creek Energy. Go ahead, Josh. Criteria Q is whether the use will adversely affect nearby properties or their occupants. You have received a detailed application from the applicants, their site plan, and they have a number of exhibits that help to provide more information concerning the operation and detail of the solar facility. The solar facility provides many positive benefits to the community. However, one thing that even in the application that is omitted is the impact of the facility. The size could affect nearby properties with their view shed. The visual impact is not easily mitigated, and that being said, the board must make a determination if the adverse impacts are acceptable on this project. Go ahead, Josh. Criteria S addresses the compatibility of the proposed project with the existing and adjacent building structures, neighborhood topography, and other considerations. As you've seen on numerous of the slides and discussion that we have given and looking at the other criteria, there is the South Industrial Park, and those are all the characteristics that you would find of industrial enterprises. The park also has the Basin Creek Power Plant. This particular location of the solar facility allows the facility to be connected to the grid and provide another resource of power to facilities located in the park, including that of Atlas Power. The existing structure within the park can be seen by many of the surrounding properties, including those residential facilities on the Little Basin Creek side. That being said, there is a substantial amount of grazing and/or open space lands that buffer those rural neighboring properties from the existing park. And as stated, this historically has been used as part of the Gosden McDermott Ranch. And then as you have seen from the aerials, it is surrounded by rural residentials that have generally larger acreage. Go ahead, Josh. Criteria T is the expressed public opinion relating to all of the review criteria, the 20 criteria that you've seen a majority of it that we've gone through in this presentation. The rest of that criteria staff agreed with and didn't address because their application is a part of this record. The applicants did hold some open houses. The results of those open houses were scheduled after the deadline of their application being due. They have provided, and you have within the packet, and I'm sure the applicants will address that in their presentation, they have submitted the information of those public events and also information about meeting with some of the property owners. But it's very important to note that staff did not review that additional information in reviewing the criteria of this as it came in after the application deadline. We also, since the information of the solar facility has been presented in the newspaper and other areas, and we've posted the property, we have received a substantial amount of written comment. You have received the written comment that came in before your package was to be out, has been sent to you with your package. The other written comment, you do have copies of it tonight that came in today. And at this time, we can start the criteria, we can start reading those written comments in, or we can kind of finish up with the conclusion and then go to that, whichever you prefer, Mr. Chairman.
Might as well read them in at this point.
Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Dylan for a minute to start reading.
You need a drink of water, I think, Lori.
And again, your packet does have all of from the applicants. I assume they'll be going over it, so we won't read that into the record. It is a part of the record. So Dylan will start with the proponents that we received.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will start with the proponents with written comment. This is addressed to Butte-Silver Planning Department. Attention Lori Casey, Planning Director, Dave Wing, Chairman, and Zoning Board of Adjustment. Dear Ms. Casey and Mr. Wing, please accept this letter in support of the Basin Creek Solar Project application for a special use permit. This permit is imperative for the project sponsors to move forward with the development of up to 1,600 acres of Gosden-McDermott property into a utility-scale solar generation field. The BLDC board met on May 27th and voted unanimously to support this important project's application. Our board is comprised of individuals who represent many of our community's largest employers and vital stakeholders, all of whom were present at the meeting, felt that the Basin Creek Solar Project is an exciting economic development opportunity on which Butte cannot afford to miss out. BLDC is the primary economic development organization for Butte-Silver Bow with a mission to grow our area's employment opportunities, increase Butte's population and tax base to assist our existing businesses to grow and compete in a global economy.
Excuse me, would you get closer to the mic so we can understand you better? Thank you. And speak slower.
Just do your best, Dylan.
Lost where I was at. BLDC is the primary economic development organization for Butte-Silver Bow with a mission to grow our area's employment opportunities, increase Butte's population and tax base to assist our existing businesses to grow and compete in a global economy. The proposed Basin Creek Solar Project and what it can provide to our community and economy fulfills all these priorities. The direct investment of the solar project, approximately $250 million, number of union scale construction jobs during the 2-year development time frame, 150 jobs, permanent high-paying solar jobs after completion, up to 10 jobs, and the significant increases in property taxes occurring from the development would all be very positive impacts for Butte's economy. Even more exciting to BLDC are the indirect benefits projected from Atlas Power's data centers expansion and transition to high-performance computing made possible by development of the solar array. These benefits include an additional $150 million in investment, 100+ union-scale jobs during construction, 30 to 35 permanent high-tech jobs, and a substantial increase in the tax revenues to the county and the South Butte Targeted Economic Development District. Further, the prospective opportunity of attracting additional companies and jobs in the technology sector due to establishing Butte as an HPC and green energy hub is exciting and beneficial as well. It relates to the land use decision and special use permit. A large portion of the proposed solar facility is adjacent to the South Butte TED, zoned industrial, one of only a few areas in Butte specifically targeted for economic development. We believe the proposed solar project fully conforms with Butte-Silver Bow's comprehensive growth plan and is more consistent with the surrounding economic development activity in this area, industrial, than the prevailing R1S and R4 zoning. And again, because it is a direct proximity to the proposed tie-in location to the electrical grid, there's simply no other place at this time where Basin Creek Solar Facility can be constructed to conserve the data center's future plans. We are proud to support the Basin Creek Solar application and appreciate the consideration of our input in reaching an appropriate decision. Please let us know if we can answer any questions that you may have. Thanks. Joe Wilhauer. The next letter. Butte-Silver Planning Department and Zoning Board of Adjustment. REC Silicon supports Basin Creek Solar's request for a special use permit and variance. REC Silicon is a leading producer of advanced silicon materials supplying high-purity polysilicon and silicon gases to the solar and electronics industries worldwide. REC Silicon is interested in this potential project for the following reasons: to be a good neighbor and support development in our community, to possibly enter a contract with Basin Creek Solar to buy excess power to support operation needs for the Butte plant, to make a good effort as we become more environmentally friendly company to support another company with similar goals. Members of REC Silicon's executive leadership team are aware of Basin Creek Solar's project, are in support of the development, and want to be involved in the process if approval is granted. We believe this project is a positive for our community. Feel free to contact me with any questions. Best regard, Cody D. Carpenter, PE, Engineering Manager, REC Silicon. The next letter is from Nate Watson, 621 North Montana Street, Butte. I am writing in favor of the Basin Creek Solar Project. First, I want to address the public comments I have been seeing regarding noise and light pollution. This location is adjacent to the industrial park. In my opinion, individuals who are located there would have been aware when purchasing property that expansion in the industrial park was always a possibility. Second, this is a great way to supplement our local power infrastructure through green means. Given the creation of Basin Creek Solar Project, Atlas Power Data Center would be able to expand. In my opinion, any endeavor that supports technology growth in our community is a positive. Please give this project a serious positive consideration. Thank you, Nate Watson, Watson IT Solutions. This one is from Community Counseling and Correctional Services. Dear board members, I am writing in reference to the above. The purpose of this communication is to express our agency's support for the Basin Creek Solar Project. Our private, not-for-profit corporation currently owns and operates a vehicle maintenance center facility located at 100 South Parkmont, Butte, Montana. Our property borders where the proposed development will take place, and our agency does not believe this project will have any adverse impact on our property and or their respective value. It is my understanding that economic impact for Butte-Silver County and southwest Montana is significant, and that the Basin Creek Solar Development is a $250 million project which would create numerous jobs both during construction and approximately 10 full-time jobs once the facility is operational. I certainly am empathetic to some of the residential neighbors' concerns. However, I believe that developers have been very diligent and thorough in responding to said concerns that have been presented. In addition to the jobs with this development, it is my understanding there is a possibility for a number of additional potential opportunities for our community, which will support efforts to enhance Butte-Silver County's economic growth. In closing, if any of the board members have questions relative to our property and position in this matter, please do not hesitate to contact me. I thank you in advance for any positive consideration you may afford to this request. Sincerely, Mike Thatcher, Chief Executive Officer. The next one was an op-ed from Matt Vincent that was included in your packet, and they're here, so I'm not going to read that one.
One of the things submitted in support of the application was an op-ed that occurred, that was in the Montana Standard. That was presented by Matt Vincent. He is one of the consultants for this project, so we will not read that. He can go over that when they have the applicant has their turn for the presentation.
The next letter is from Tony and Patty Nazer. Hello, my husband and I live at 105 Beaver Pond Road, Butte, Montana, 59701. We live in close proximity to the Basin Creek Solar Project. We would like to extend our support. We feel it will not constrict our view or affect our property value in any way. When we bought our house almost 7 years ago, we were also very aware that we were buying in the industrial park area. Thank you, Tony and Patty Nazer. The next one is from Les Cook, Chancellor of Montana Tech. Dear Ms. Casey, Mr. Wing, and zoning board members, Montana Tech is pleased to provide this letter in support of the special use permit and variance application for the Basin Creek Solar Project. We understand the potential opportunities and benefits both the solar project and the high-performance computing data center could bring to the Butte community and to the program's faculty and students at both Montana Tech and Highlands College. While there are a variety of opportunities that could be available to the Butte-Silver community, we feel those for Montana Tech may include opening doors for programs existing and new, and students, faculty at both Montana Tech and Highlands College to learn firsthand about utility-scale solar PV generation projects, as well as HPC applications and data centers. Many corporations that Tech Highlands graduates may work for are moving in the direction of greater climate responsibility and net zero goals. The Basin Solar Project is an excellent example of how renewable energy is developed and produced and will help companies and our planet achieve climate change measures that could provide a learning laboratory for our constituents. Benefits of green renewable energy and for Butte to take a leading position in this development in Montana. The possibility of alternative and/or expanded uses of existing space at our Highlands College campus. Thank you for your consideration, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Sincerely, Les P. Cook, Chancellor. Excuse me. The next one, Lori, I am writing in support of the Basin Creek Solar Project. In this mixed market, the typical buyer understands and knows that seeking a home or purchasing a home in this area and overall market is mixed, with the industrial park being a big part of the area. It has been my experience that homes in this area continue to be built, continue to be purchased, and continue to increase in value at the same rate as other homes throughout Silver Bow County. There hasn't been any known adverse extractable or proven monetary effect on marketability or market value for this area. Adding a solar project in this already developed and established industrial area, providing a green resource for our community and an economic financial gain to our local contractors and tax contribution to our community is a positive thing. If the solar project was a standalone project in amongst residential specific dwellings only, then it would be viewed as a negative external factor. If any homes are within fall distance or immediately abutting property lines, they could be impacted negatively. Homes with a view of the solar project also already have a view of the industrial park, dwellings, fenced area, and equipment, and that goes with the industrial area. Renee Neary Appraisal Service. The next one, Dear Miss Casey, I am writing you in your capacity as Montana Planning Department Director to express my complete support as a Butte resident and professor at Montana Tech in Butte for over 30 years for the proposal to build a solar plant in Butte. As Matt Vincent writes in an excellent editorial that appeared in yesterday's Montana Standard, our local paper, this plant would bring jobs to our community. Constructing it would require hundreds of workers, and once it was built, it would provide about 10 full-time positions. Unemployment has long been a serious problem in Butte, so any proposal which brings jobs to our town is always welcome. But more importantly, from my perspective, building a solar plant in Butte will help the crucial struggle to combat climate change. As I'm sure you are aware, the entire scientific establishment is in agreement that unless humanity transitions quickly from a reliance on fossil fuels to our energy needs to focus on clean energy like solar and wind power, the consequences for the planet will be extremely dire. Climate change isn't something that might happen in some distant future. It is happening right now, and the endless onslaught across the globe of pandemics, hurricanes, tornadoes, droughts, polar freezes, species going extinct, heat waves, ocean levels rising, ice caps and glaciers melting, etc., etc. We must address this potentially existential threat now, not only for our own sake, but for the sake of our children and grandchildren. In his editorial, Vincent also persuasively refutes the complaints that have been raised publicly by some Butte residents who live in the area that's been proposed for the site of the plant, who have argued based on misinformation that the plant will harm the natural beauty of the area. There's simply no reason for this project not to go forward. Please let me know if you have any questions or thoughts about my letter. Sincerely, Dr. Henry Gonchak, Professor of English, Montana Tech. This one's from the Westmoreland Company, Inc. Dear Director Casey and Chairman Wing, the Westmoreland Company, Inc. is pleased to submit this letter in support of the Basin Creek Solar Project's application for a special use permit and variance. The Westmoreland Company owns the FedEx facility located adjacent to the property. The FedEx facility occupies land that was formerly part of the Gosden-McDermott Ranch. We feel that the proposed solar project is consistent with the current business of FedEx, along with the future expansion of FedEx fleet to all electric vehicles by 2035. The proposed project appears to conform well with the economic growth plan for this area. FedEx selected their current site because of the area's strategic location within the South Butte Industrial Park. Approval of the Basin Creek Solar Project will only further support the growth of appropriate development in this area. The Westmoreland Company and FedEx has a history of working with the project applicant. We feel confident that the Basin Creek Solar Project will be positive for all adjacent landowners in the Butte community. Again, please accept this letter in your consideration of approving the request. Yours very truly, Jada R. Leo, President. This is to Butte-Silver Planning Department and Zoning Board of Adjustments from Mike Paffhausen, P.E., owner agent Paffhausen Insurance Agency, Inc. Subject, letter to support the Basin Creek Solar Project application for special use permit and zoning variance. Date, June 17th, 2021. The purpose of this letter is to offer support for the Basin Creek Solar Project application for special use permit and zoning variance. Support is being offered for the following reasons. Assurance that remedies will be offered as issues arise. I have full faith and confidence that the owners, engineers, architects, and other professionals involved in this project are committed to remedy issues with the neighboring homes and businesses. This is a part of the design process. The construction will be inevitably be disruptive to all for a short time. However, once completed with thoughtfulness, proper design elements, and acting on feedback from the community, this project should not pose any adverse harm to its neighbors. Future economic realities. Although the mining city, Butte will not always be a mining city. The facts of MRI's operating permit and available ore reserves alludes to the future closure of the mine within the next 30 to 50 years. This board, our elected officials, and our economic developers must take steps to replace the approximately 300 high-paying jobs MRI offers this community. This project, by all measures, is a reasonable and a prudent step in that direction. Attraction for recruitment. Butte is, was, and always will be an industry leader. We generated at one time nearly 80% of all electrified copper wire in the world. It only seems appropriate to lead in the sustainable power generation sector as well. This project would differentiate us for broad business recruitment and ultimately result in more job creation. Diversification of the local economy. The green energy sector is not going away. The reality is that petroleum products are a finite resource. Demand from sustainable energy sources like solar will only increase over time. We have withstood the repercussions of having a monolithic economy in the past. It is imperative to act to prevent history from repeating itself. That's the op-ed again. That was the second copy of the op-ed from Matt Vincent. The next one, honorable members of the zoning board. The Department of Energy estimates utility scale solar installations will cover 3 million acres of land in the United States by 2030. In traditional solar development, these sites would be single use, built on graded, stripped ground. An alternative to this type of development is the co-location of solar and sustainable agriculture. This practice, known as agri-solar or agrivoltaics, is a cutting-edge technique meant to improve ecosystem services and increase societal acceptance of solar developments. The National Center for Appropriate Technology, NCAT, is a national sustainable energy and sustainable agriculture nonprofit with headquarters in Butte. NCAT supports the development of renewable energy and climate solutions around the country. We support large-scale solar installations that are planned, installed, and maintained in a manner that complements co-location with sustainable agricultural operations, which may include crop production, livestock grazing, or pollinator-friendly habitat. NCAT is currently working with the Department of Energy to develop a national agri-solar communications and networking hub that will be known as Agri-Solar Clearinghouse. Our partners in this project include top researchers, scientists, agri-solar practitioners in the country, as well as Argonne National Laboratory, California Polytechnic, George Washington University, National Renewable Energy Laboratory, Oak Ridge National Lab, University of Arizona, and the Smithsonian. The Basin Creek Solar Project recently contacted NCAT regarding the Agri-Solar Clearinghouse, and after meeting, NCAT and our partners plan to offer technical assistance and best practice guidelines for the development if it is approved. We support and look forward to the assisting of utility-scale agri-solar development in Butte. where we can readily offer regular assistance, study, and guidance. Agri-solar is a promising new industry, and NCAT is pleased to be a part of its early development. We would be proud if our hometown hosted a model project that helps meet society's need for clean energy and healthy food. Sincerely, Stacy Peterson, PhD, Energy Program Director.
Mr. Chairman, we'll now read the letters that we received in opposition. We have tried to separate these into letters that are original, if you will, and then we have two different type of form letters. So on the form letters, we will read you the form letter, and then after that, we will just read you the name and address on those, if that is okay with the chair.
Yes.
The first letter of opposition is, my name is Mason Lieber, and I am 15 years old. I grew up running around our fields. Enjoy the beautiful view of the Lady of the Rockies and all of the surrounding mountains. I hope you take this into consideration because this will change the entire landscape and ecosystem. I feel this is a very selfish act on the people trying to push this solar farm. Everyone living on our road has worked very hard to make their homes and property as special as possible. I would love to live in Butte the rest of my life and start my own family here. Please don't ruin Butte for all generations. Mason Lieber, and he also included a picture that shows the property and where their property is in relation to the farm. Second letter is, I know everybody right now is team yes and team no. It is all the adults, but some kids play out there, watch the animals, enjoy the view. I would love for you to take this into consideration because this will very much affect Butte. Yes, green energy is important, but you don't need to ruin the landscape, ruin people's views and animal habitat. Have you even realized how big this is and why, if it is going to affect people, even me, who loves looking at animals and the view? Sincerely, Sage Lieber. And there you have a set of pictures that were included, so those are in your packet. To whom it may concern, we are writing this letter in opposition to a proposed change in zoning for the Basin Creek Solar Project by Madison River Equity LLC. This proposal is seeking to add a 1,600-acre, 700,000 panel solar array to South Butte and thus requests an exception to the current zoning of R1S single-family suburban residential to accommodate this industrial use. We are not opposed to the use of solar in the appropriate area, but we are very opposed to this location. There will be a negative impact to our ecosystem, and that is something that cannot be replaced. Part of the reason that we have chosen to live in the country is the scenery. We love our view of the land, wildlife, and community. That land is home to many birds, elk, deer, fox, antelope, owls, and more amazing animals. We have included just a few of the pictures of the animals that we have taken over the years. We have many more if you'd like. We want to be able to enjoy these animals for years to come. This is our forever home, and we want it to be the wildlife's safe home as well. This solar farm just simply doesn't fit into our neighborhood and will not have a positive effect on our community. We have also learned that the property values will likely decrease. It isn't going to make a big impact on employment for our citizens. The soil is forever destroyed. The citizens of Butte will not receive any credit on our energy bills. We are also concerned about where these panels are coming from and what will happen to them when their life cycle is over. These are just a few of our concerns. We respectfully ask the Butte-Silver Bow Zoning Board oppose the proposed special and/or conditional use permit of the Basin Creek Solar Project and work with the developers to site the project in a more appropriate industrial location. Sincerely, Mike Callahan, Christelle Callahan, 384 Cottontail Lane, Butte. And again, you have more pictures that were submitted with your packet. Butte-Silver Bow Zoning Board of Adjustment. In 2002, my wife and I moved to Butte, Montana to start our healthcare careers and our Rocky Mountain dream. It is difficult for me to describe, but the sense of family, pride, and caring that exists in the people of Butte is why we will always call it home. Butte has endured a great deal of adversity throughout its history and has the scars and Superfund sites to show for it. Changing the current zoning designation of historically agricultural and residential areas to benefit only a few individuals who are non-residents seems unreasonable. The Butte Valley will never be the same as a result of past mistakes that should never be repeated. With that in mind, I hope for the sake of Butte and all of our families, you have a cautious and thoughtful approach to the proposed utility-scale solar farm proposed in our valley. These panels would cover almost 1.7 miles wide and 2.8 miles from top to bottom. The magnitude of this utility-scale solar farm would create a profound scar on our valley that is over 3 times the size of our current Superfund site, the Berkeley Pit. The proposed fencing surrounding solar farm, combined with screening effect by the 12-foot tall solar panels, would result in substantial change in this property and detrimental impact on neighboring properties. From my family's property, Our Lady of the Rockies and a portion of the East Ridge would be completely blocked from our view. The proposed utility-scale solar farm is completely and obviously non-compatible with its adjacent landscape and properties. My wife and I have 2 children, ages 15 and 11. As with your families, their safety is our top priority. We live on Little Basin Creek Road. That is a very windy and narrow road that has numerous blind spots and hills. Heavy equipment, construction vehicles, and high-volume traffic for the utility-scale solar farm will create tremendous public safety risks, which are unacceptable. They will soon be learning to drive, and the last thing I want to do is treat my child while at work in the emergency department because of this solar farm. In reviewing the top 5 largest solar farms in the U.S., this solar farm would be located the closest to any community in the United States. The average distance from a community of these utility-scale solar farm is 20.5 miles. If you add up the population of all 5 of these communities, the total number of people is 8,112. Atlas Power plans to build 6.4 miles from Butte's estimated 33,964 residents. Based upon locations of existing utility-scale solar farms, this is not a socially acceptable distance from a community. Considering existing mine and Superfund sites, Butte is not the appropriate place for another SCAR. Our community does not need to shoulder the burden for the select few again. Alternative energy is important for our planet's future, which I support, but utility-scale solar farms of this size are not located in highly populated areas. Construction of a project of this scale will have expected nuisances of noise, air pollution, and long-term health risks have yet to be determined. Air quality will be a significant health risk, especially during wildlife season. The excavation and construction will result in excessive exhaust and dust. With Margaret Larry and Hillcrest Elementary Schools being downwind, residents of Butte are all too familiar with these risks due to mistakes that have been made in the past. Looking forward to the future, why would we repeat this cycle? My wife and I purchased our home and property because of the undisturbed natural beauty of the landscape and scenic views. These qualities of the south aspect of the Butte Valley are priceless, and for the sake of future generations should be protected. We also trusted that the zoning of our area would not be for sale. Rezoning of this property and the solar farm created would be inconsistent with current topography, landscape, and vegetation. This development would be an obvious substantial change in its current land usage and intent. Butte is well known for being Butte tough and Butte taking care of Butte. It's time to think about the future of our families, friends, and our valley. Their potential is limitless, but only if we are tough and take care of Butte. This approach will benefit all of its residents. I appreciate your time and service to our community as members of the Zoning Board. Please be cautious and thoughtful in your decision. Respectfully, Eric C. Lieber, 540 Little Basin Creek Road. To whom it may concern, I am opposed to the proposed location of the Basin Creek Solar Project that is affiliated with Atlas Power on the Gosden-McDermott Cattle Ranch Company. This area is zoned as residential and should primarily remain as such. There are more appropriate areas conducive to such a vast, massive endeavor, such as the Tiffin area immediately west of Butte. It is my understanding and acknowledge that a portion of the 300 megawatt of power generated by the Basin Creek Solar Project will mainly benefit Atlas Power. The current cryptocurrency facility, along with its planned future expansion of an additional 8 cryptocurrency facilities. It is also my understanding that the remaining power will be put on the grid. This power is up for bid that could be sold on the open market to out-of-state interests and may not benefit the Butte community. Currently, according to the Montana Standard article of 32821 by David McCumber, every one of Atlas Power's thousands of graphic processing units are mining uranium. As thousands more GPUs are added to the planned expansion, Kevin Washington may become the largest miner of uranium in the world. Unfortunately, this does not translate into thousands of high-paying technology jobs, not even dozens. The few workers that are required simply monitor the servers. The benefit of the planned expansion to the Butte has not yet been demonstrated other than the promise of high-performance computing or a program academy. Does Butte deserve another industrial eyesore at the south end of town, or should we preserve the green space and quality of life afforded by our area? The entire dynamic of Butte and pastoral views of South Butte would be forever lost. It is always a tragedy when business moves out into a town in rural areas with so-called eco-friendly promises of riches and good stewardship. I implore the zoning board to carefully consider the ramifications of the approval of the special use permit. Thank you, Scott and Austin Esplin, 833 Hummingbird Lane. To whom it may concern, I am writing this letter of opposition to the proposed change in zoning for the Basin Creek Solar Project. By Madison River Equity LLC, this project is affiliated with Atlas Power on the Gosden-McDermott Cattle Ranch. This project will consume 1,600 acres, 2.5 square miles between Basin Creek and Little Basin Creek, and will have 700,000 solar panels to be installed. This is not a green energy project, but a black energy project. This area is currently zoned as rural agricultural to urban one-family resident use. If zoning is changed to allow the 700,000 solar panels, then all the residents who live out here will have their view changed to a sea of black, which will make them and myself extremely unhappy. Why should our quality of life be ruined to enrich Matt Vincent and the Madison River Equity investors? I live on the east side of Little Basin Creek, directly west of the Bitcoin plant. I am a retired electrical engineer and have owned several motorhomes with solar panels and inverters. When the inverters are online and under electrical load, they emit vibrating, humming noises. These large solar inverters will create constant noise pollution during the daylight hours. In order to rezone this area, there must be a compelling public necessity per Butte-Silver Bow Municipal Code 17.52.010. This project does not meet that standard. It is a private venture to enrich Madison River Equity investors at the expense of property values, wildlife habitat, and ecological diversity. It will have adverse effects, including complete ecological destruction of the area. This project has not demonstrated that it will have long-term positive effects on Butte-Silver Bow community. Only 8 permanent maintenance jobs are projected to be the outcome of this development. The expansion of the Bitcoin data center will continue to thrive on its own as it has since its inception. There will be no hundreds of millions of dollars in high-paying technology jobs coming to Butte. Please take a ride out to Basin Creek Road and Little Basin Creek Road and see for yourselves what we will be looking at every day of our lives and how our quality of life will be ruined if you approve this monumental project. Please leave the zoning as is. I have nothing against looking at urban one-family residents. John Roesti, 554 East Badger Lane. To whom it may concern, I oppose the Basin Creek Solar Farm for a variety of reasons. One, I moved from town to Little Basin Creek for the view, personal space, peace and quiet, and the love of the animals and wildlife. This past winter, I had 18 elk bed down in the front pasture. I also had fox, red-tailed hawk, porcupine, moose, antelope, plus an occasional cow come to visit. I'm afraid this will end and endanger the wildlife. Two, I have physical health, mental health, and quality of life concerns due to the annoying continuous noise, such a humming and vibration sounds from the inverters. Will we be able to relax on the deck and listen to the birds or hear a buzzing sound from the inverters? Will these 700,000 panels and whatever goes with them interfere with our cell, satellite TV, and internet service? There are many questions that must be answered by someone other than those involved with Atlas Energy. My husband and I were staying in an RV park in Lancaster, California. They had installed a huge solar field with all the pie-in-the-sky promises like we were hearing here. The heat from the panels killed the grasses, leaving bare ground underneath and around the solar panels. When the wind blew the loose dirt, it caused a dust sandstorm, closing Highway 14, Lancaster to Bakersfield, California. I could not drive back to the RV due to zero visibility, and with the high winds, it felt like I was being sandblasted. It was scary. From what I understood from many of the residents, the promises were only to get the project completed, and then who cares? I also don't understand how this will be positive for Butte. The extra power will go on the grid, don't know how, and then sold out of state. What happens when the sun doesn't shine, snows for several days in a row, hails, or the panels are dirty? I was told at the meeting that there would be about 5 or so new jobs created for maintenance. Whom are the Madison Valley equity investors? I would like to know their names, where they're from, and the businesses they represent. Their website is quite vague. There are some shady people involved in this project and are in it for the money and the heck with what happens to Butte. How many times does Butte have to be taken advantage of? In the words of Elon Musk, these solar farms are a wasteful, environmentally harmful means of using energy. Yes, this is 2.5 square miles, 700,000 panels, and 1,600 acres of prime land at the south end of Butte. Boy, oh boy, property values will plummet. I heard friends who've been promised a new improved road to their home with trees, etc. I was personally asked if trees would make me change my mind. These trees would have to be 100 feet tall. To me, this is bribery, and these people will say anything to get their way. In closing, I'm hoping no person on the panel has been promised jobs, money, or some other perk that would cause them to vote in favor of this project. I also would like to ask the board one final question. Deep down, could you look each one of us in the eye and say you would want this in your front yard and be happy sitting on your deck with this ugly, noisy, and black glass view? In my opinion, I feel this project will make lots of money for a few and leave a forever blight for the rest of Butte. Just think, the first sight of Butte coming down Homestake would be a black sea of solar panels rather than rolling hills, native grasses, and our rural pastoral setting. Thank you for your time, and please keep the zoning residential for the mental health of the affected residents. Sandy Roesti, 554 Badger Lane, East Badger Lane. Okay. Members, I live at 620 Little Basin Creek Road in Butte. I strongly oppose this proposed change in zoning for Basin Creek Solar Project. I call attention to the mission statement of the Planning Board. The mission of the Butte-Silver Bow Planning Department, under the direction of the Planning Board, is to sustain and improve the health, safety, convenience, and welfare of the citizens of Butte-Silver Bow, and to plan for the future development of the community. This project fails that mission statement. It will only enrich the pockets of several non-residents of our city. The effects of a large solar farm in the center of Butte will not only be an eyesore, but may have health effects for citizens living near it. This farm will put out EMIs, electrical magnetical interference. No one knows the or has explained the health effects living next to one of these farms. Most of these farms are located away from populations and are not as large. It is noted that residents living on the western side of this farm may lose internet and cell service due to EMI. As a volunteer for setup and takedown of the Montana Folk Festival, I usually work through the festival doing whatever is needed for operations. I was always amazed at how many visitors from outside of Butte commented on how lucky I am to live here with this beautiful view. This would change that view. Many visitors would leave. Many residents who presently have this wonderful view of the valley would leave. I would be one. I am always in awe of the beautiful view coming off of Homestake Pass. Be it winter, white, or spring green, I do not want to look at a second enormous black hole pit in the center of Butte. I believe this will turn off visitors and possibly new residents of a desire to move here. Aren't we just being discovered now? Today, only 32 homes are for sale in Butte. I don't even remember a number that low. Before COVID, I was a volunteer usher for the Motherlode Theater. When driving home at night too many times to count, I would have to pull over on Little Basin Creek to let the 80 to 120 elk jump over the fences. The herd heads directly to the property that the solar farm would occupy. The elk winter in that sheltered valley where this farm would go. I have seen many other forms of wildlife. We have a pair of golden eagles flying over that area now. I have seen badgers crossing the road heading to the creek area. I had one in my hay shed once. Not an animal I want to mess with. Badgers are a protected species. This project requires miles of underground electrical cable. This cable would interfere with badger habitat by destroying the rodent population. Have we learned anything from the past mining problems Butte has had? The cleanup of Butte is still going on. Who will clean up this mess when the 20 to 25 years of life of this farm is over? Are they posting a $10 or $20 million bond? I have a concern of this farm being so close to an airport. The heated air effect reflected would cause mirage issues for aircraft and may affect their instrumentation due to the EMI. Internet information on the temperatures of these farms is sketchy. 3 to 30 degrees hotter than the ambient temperatures are listed on the panels. I tend to believe 20 to 30 degrees would be the average. Park a black car on an 85-degree sunny day in Butte. Touch it, it will burn your hand. Hot air rises. This could have a disastrous effect on lift for an aircraft trying to land. Butte Airport is already a difficult airport to land in because of the mountains and the mountain air currents. Neighbors have commented on a heat island effect with a solar farm. This effect would worsen rainfall in Butte. I believe it would change Butte's weather for the worst. What if a lightning strike occurs? My house has been struck by lightning twice. It was listed in the Montana Standard as fire department was called. I am a retired volunteer firefighter, and I believe this farm would be a nightmare to fight a fire. The chemicals in these panels are very hazardous, and I dread thinking of one of our hailstorms hitting these panels. I lost my roof, neighbors lost windows, windshields, and a horse got knocked out after the golf ball storm we had years ago. The worst part of this is that these panels are made cheaply in China, which primarily uses slave Muslim labor to manufacture them. Please do not vote for a zone change. Thank you for your attention. David Dusterbeck, 620 Little Basin Creek Road.
Lori, at this time, we'll take a 10-minute break.
Okay.